The cathedral doors burst open. The organ roared, and Sharon Whitmore stepped forward with murder in her bouquet. Her hands did not shake. Her smile did not falter. But beneath the white roses, wrapped in silk the color of old memories, was a blade. Small, polished, precise. She had tested its balance 3 nights ago. She had whispered her father's name while holding it. She had promised him justice. 200 guests turned to watch her walk down the aisle. Silk gowns rustled. Diamond necklaces glittered. Camera flashes flickered like lightning in a storm no one else could see. They saw a bride. They saw a merger of empires. They saw George Crest, the youngest self-made billionaire in the city's history, finally taking a wife. What they did not see was a decade of hatred walking toward him in white. Sharon's eyes locked on the man waiting at the altar. George Crest, 40 years old, unsmiling, unreadable, the kind of man who looked at the world the way a surgeon looks at an operating table. Clinical, efficient, detached. He watched her approach without expression. His dark gaze never wavered, and for one flicker of a second, she wondered, does he know? No. Impossible. She had spent 10 years preparing this. 10 years building her career in financial consulting. 10 years infiltrating the circles that orbited him. 10 years turning herself into someone indispensable. 10 years waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The music swelled. She reached the altar. George extended his hand. She placed hers in it. His skin was warm. The contact startled her. His thumb brushed lightly against her knuckles. Not possessive. Not romantic. Intentional. The priest began speaking. The words blurred into background noise. Marriage. Union. Covenant. Prosperity. Sharon focused on breathing. She remembered the foreclosure notice taped to their estate gates. She remembered her mother standing in the driveway in a bathrobe, watching strangers carry the piano away. She remembered her father staring at the dining room wall like something inside him had snapped beyond repair. And she remembered the newspaper headline, Whitmore Industries collapses in hostile takeover. Below it, George Crest, not smiling, not apologizing, just standing there, victorious. The priest cleared his throat. George Crest, do you take? Yes. No hesitación. No tremor. His voice carried through the cathedral like a verdict. The priest turned. Sharon Whitmore, do you take? Her heart pounded once, twice. Say it. They're just words, she told herself silently. Just words. Ido. Applause erupted. Cameras flashed. George slid a platinum band onto her finger. Cold. Minimal. No diamonds. No sentiment. Suited him. When she placed his ring on his hand, their eyes locked again. And then he leaned closer. So close only she could hear him. Welcome home. Her breath caught. Home? What kind of game was this? The priest declared them husband and wife. George kissed her. It was brief, controlled, but not cold. And that unsettled her more than cruelty ever could. Pushpin if this opening already has your heart racing. Hit the like button right now. Because what Sharon is about to discover tonight will change everything. And if you love emotional drama like this, subscribe. You do not want to miss where this goes. The reception glittered like a scene from a dream she had once wanted. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, an orchestra in the corner playing something expensive and forgettable. Sharon laughed at the correct moments. She touched George's arm when cameras turned. She smiled at investors who had once shaken her father's hand and later voted against him. She memorized every face in the room. But her mind was already in the study. 3 months ago, during a charity gala, she had memorized the estate's layout. 2nd floor, left corridor, 3rd door, keypad lock. That was where the truth would be. That was where she would find the proof that George Crest destroyed Whitmore Industries deliberately. Forged debt, bribed auditors, manufactured collapse. She would find it, and she would hand it to the investigators her father's old attorney had kept alive in secret. George Crest would fall, and she would be standing inside his empire when it happened. Across the room, George ended a conversation and walked toward her. He moved like a man who never rushed, never stumbled, never reacted. "Are you tired?" he asked quietly.
No.
Overwhelmed? Not at all. He studied her. "You're very calm." She smiled. "I've had 10 years to prepare." The words slipped out before she could stop them. His eyes sharpened. "For tonight?" he asked. "For everything." A pause. Something unreadable passed between them. Then a guest interrupted, and the moment dissolved. Midnight. The estate fell silent. Guests gone. Staff dismissed. George was in the garden on a call, his back to the windows. Sharon stood in their bedroom, staring at herself in the mirror. White gown gone. Black clothes now. Hair tied back. Latex gloves. She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim device. A keypad duplicator. She had watched him enter the code twice before. Reflections.
Camera pin.
Preparation was power. She moved silently down the hallway, her pulse steady, her breathing measured. The study door loomed ahead. She typed the code. 1, 2, 3, 4. Click. The door unlocked. She slipped inside, closed it behind her. Dark, quiet. She didn't turn on the main light. A penlight flicked on in her palm, and what she saw stopped her cold.
No trophies. No framed magazine covers.
No celebration of conquest. Just books. Annotated. Worn. A desk almost bare except for a laptop and a single photograph. This wasn't a predator's den. Felt disciplined. She shook the thought away. Monsters could decorate too. She went to the filing cabinet. First drawer, standard corporate documentation. Second drawer locked. She pulled out her pick set. 3 minutes later it opened. And that's when the confusion began. Massive outbound transfers. Not incoming profits. Not offshore hoards. Outgoing money.
Million.
Tens of millions. During the exact months Whitmore Industries was collapsing. Her stomach tightened. Why would he bleed money during a takeover? She whispered. She pulled another file. And another. Her breathing grew uneven. Then she saw it. The thinner file. Marked with a single letter.
V.
Her vision tunneled. No. She opened it.
Wire confirmations.
Routing numbers. Trust documentation. Funds sent anonymously. To. She froze. To the Helena Family Preservation Trust. Helena. Her mother's name. Her hands went cold. No. 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 This had to be a manipulation. A cover. A smokescreen. She moved to the laptop. Pressed her bypass device against the fingerprint scanner. It blinked. Accepted. She was in. Pushpin pause for a second. Did you expect that? Be honest, drop a comment right now. What do you think George is hiding? And if you're not subscribed yet, this is your sign. Because the next reveal shatters everything. She began digging. Offshore entities. Encrypted trusts. Layered shell corporations. And the deeper she went, the worse it got. March 14th, the day creditors froze Whitmore assets. $4 million transferred. April 2nd, mortgage acceleration notice. $6 million transferred. July 19th, her mother's hospital admission. $2 million transferred. Every devastating date. Matched. With protection. Her father's home payments. Her mother's medical bills. Her brother's university tuition. Paid. Anonymously. For 11 years. She leaned back slowly in the chair. Her hatred began cracking like thin ice under pressure. No, she whispered. This is a trick. She kept digging. Then she found the emails. Encrypted correspondence between George and someone labeled. The architect. Marchetti. North Shore. And what she uncovered made her blood run cold. Her father had not been destroyed by George. He had been targeted. By a consortium. A coordinated financial assassination. Fabricated debt. Bribed auditors. Political leverage. And George Crest had discovered it before the collapse went public. Her breath trembled. So you didn't destroy us? A floorboard creaked outside. Her head snapped toward the door. Light appeared beneath it. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. The door opened. George stood in the doorway, still in his wedding shirt. Top button undone. Tie gone. He took in the scene. The open files. The laptop. Her gloves. Her face. 5 seconds of silence stretched like wire. Then he spoke. You found it. Not a question. A confirmation. Her voice barely held. You paid for everything. Yes. Why? He stepped into the room, closed the door, sat in the chair across from her. Not behind the desk. Across from her. Like a man prepared to answer. You were never supposed to know. Her chest tightened. Answer me. A long pause. His eyes softened for the first time since she'd known him. Because it was my fault you were targeted. Silence. What? I discovered the consortium too late. By the time I understood the scale, the dominoes were already falling. You could have warned us. I tried. Her voice rose. Try harder. His jaw tightened. They would have killed your father. The words hit like a gunshot. She stared at him. What did you say? They don't lose quietly. Silence swallowed the room. He leaned forward slightly. I could stop the financial collapse from destroying you completely. I couldn't stop the collapse itself. Not without making your family a bigger target. Her hands trembled. You let the world think you did it. Yes. Why? Because if they believed I was the predator, they stopped hunting you. The room tilted. The blade inside her jacket suddenly felt absurd. Small. Childish. You let me hate you, she whispered. His voice dropped. I needed you alive more than I needed you to understand. And something inside Sharon Whitmore broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. The silence in the study stretched so long it felt alive. Sharon's breathing was shallow. George didn't move. Neither of them looked away. You let me believe you destroyed us, she said finally. Yes. The answer was steady. No defense. No apology yet. Just truth. Her hands curled into fists on the desk. You stood outside that courthouse. You let the headlines run. You let my father think you were the one who took everything. Yes. The repetition made something inside her snap. She shot up from the chair. Do you have any idea what that did to him? George didn't flinch. He's alive. Her laugh was sharp and hollow. You think survival is the same as living? He stood now too, not towering over her, just present. I think if I had exposed the consortium publicly, your father would have died within the year. She stared at him. You're exaggerating. I'm not. His tone had shifted, still controlled but edged now. They orchestrated 6 collapses before Whitmore Industries. 4 men fought back. 2 disappeared. 2 had heart attacks within 18 months. The air felt thinner. You're lying. I wish I were. She searched his face for cracks, for deception, for the arrogance she had memorized for 10 years. There was none, just exhaustion. You could have told us privately, she whispered. And said what? He shot back, voice finally rising. That your company was being dismantled by a criminal consortium embedded inside your own board? That the auditor your father trusted was paid off? That the man he golfed with every Sunday was selling internal projections? She froze, because those were specific details. Details she had uncovered only hours ago. He stepped closer. If I had warned him, he would have fought. Loudly, publicly. He would have called emergency board meetings, filed lawsuits, made noise. And that would have made him a target. The words landed heavy. Financial collapse was the clean version, George continued. Embarrassing, painful, but survivable. She felt anger mix with something more dangerous. Understanding. And you decided that for us? She said quietly. Yes.
No hesitaste.
Her jaw tightened. You don't get to decide what kind of pain someone else can endure. A flicker of something passed through his eyes. Regret. You're right, he said, startled her. You are absolutely right. Silence again. Different now. Less explosive. More fragile. Pushpin, if this confrontation gave you chills, hit like right now. Because we're only scratching the surface. And if you think Sharon should forgive him, comment, forgive. If you think he went too far, comment, unforgivable. Let's see where you stand. Sharon's eyes drifted to the laptop screen still glowing on the desk. You said I wasn't supposed to know, she said slowly. Yes. Why now? He studied her for a long moment. I knew you were investigating me. Her stomach dropped. What? You're good, he said evenly. Very good, but not invisible. A flash of indignation. You monitored me? I protected you. That's not the same thing. He exhaled slowly.
No.
It isn't. He turned the laptop toward himself and typed something. A hidden directory opened. Hundreds of folders. Dated. Organized. Her name was in the file titles. Sharon Whitmore Movement Logs. Sharon Whitmore Risk Assessment.
Sharon Whitmore, surveillance à l'air.
Her pulse began pounding. You tracked me. I tracked threats near you. Don't twist it. His voice remained steady. 3 years ago, a man affiliated with Marchetti approached you at a conference in Geneva. Her heart skipped. He didn't approach me. He bumped into me. He was testing proximity. Her mouth went dry. 2 years ago, a consulting firm tried to recruit you aggressively. They were a front. Her mind replayed the encounter. The uncomfortable persistence. The strange intensity. I declined, she said weakly. You were supposed to accept. The room felt like it was shrinking. They wanted access to your networks. Your father's old contacts. Your research. Her voice lowered. You knew about my research. Yes. How long? Almost from the beginning. Her knees weakened slightly. You let me spend 10 years thinking I was getting close to destroying you. Yes. And you watched. I intervened when it became dangerous. She stared at him in disbelief. You manipulated my entire life. His voice softened.
No.
A pause. I removed obstacles that would have gotten you killed. The distinction hung between them. She didn't know whether to scream or collapse. You could have told me the truth. And then what? He asked quietly. You would have stopped investigating?
No.
Exactly. He stepped back slightly. I knew you wouldn't stop. It's not who you are. Her eyes burned. So you just let me hate you. He swallowed once. Yes. Why? The answer took longer this time. Because it cost him something. Because if hating me kept you focused and alive, I could live with that. Silence. Her throat tightened. You're arrogant enough to think you can decide what I need. Yes. Blunt. Honest. Infuriating. And devastating. Sharon's hand moved slowly to her jacket pocket. She pulled out the silk-wrapped blade. George's gaze dropped to it. No fear. No reaction. She unwrapped it deliberately. The metal caught the lamplight. I brought this tonight, she said. I assumed you might. Her head snapped up. You knew. He nodded once. You were too calm at the altar. A strangled laugh escaped her. I planned to kill you. Yes. And you still married me? Yes. Why? The word cracked. He didn't look away. Because if I was wrong about you, I would have deserved it. Her breath stopped. What? If I misjudged your capacity for truth? He continued quietly. If after everything you still chose to kill me without looking deeper, then I failed. And I would accept the consequence. The blade trembled in her hand. You're insane. Possibly. She stared at him, searching for irony. There was none. You would have let me stab you? If that's what you needed. The knife slipped from her fingers onto the desk. The sound echoed loudly. I don't understand you, she whispered. I know. He stepped closer now. Not threatening, just present. I have spent 11 years making decisions that required me to be the villain in your story. His voice dropped. I can survive being hated. I could not survive you being harmed. Her chest tightened painfully. That's not love, she said defensively. I didn't say it was. A pause. But it's something. She felt the ground beneath her, emotional certainty cracking again. Her entire identity for 10 years had been built on revenge, on righteous fury, on clarity. And now, nothing was clear. This is where everything changes. If you're still watching, you're invested. So subscribe right now. Because what happens next? It forces Sharon to choose who she becomes next. She straightened suddenly. My father. George stilled. What about him? You said he would have been killed. Yes. Is he still in danger? A beat. Less. But not zero. Her heartbeat spiked. You said the consortium dismantled after Whitmore. They fractured. They didn't disappear. And they know about me? They're starting to. Cold realization washed over her. Because of my investigation. Yes. Her breath came shallow now. You should have told me sooner. Yes. She stepped back, pacing. You don't get to carry this alone anymore. He watched her carefully. I've been carrying it alone for 11 years. Not anymore. The words surprised both of them. She stopped pacing, looked at him. If what you're saying is true, if you've been protecting my family this whole time, then you don't get to make unilateral decisions anymore. A flicker of something unfamiliar crossed his face. Hope. We do this together. The word together echoed in the room. Careful.
Tentative.
Powerful. He nodded slowly. Together. She looked at the blade on the desk. Then at the files. Then at him. I don't forgive you, she said clearly. I know. But I'm not going to kill you either. A small exhale left him. That's appreciated. Despite everything. A faint, almost smile flickered across her face. It vanished quickly. This isn't over.
No.
She extended her hand across the desk. Not romantic. Not soft. Strategic. Show me everything. He took it. And for the first time since the wedding bells rang, they weren't enemies. They were allies. Dawn crept through the kitchen windows. Neither of them had slept. The wedding flowers still decorated the estate downstairs. White roses arranged in crystal vases. Remnants of a celebration that already felt like it belonged to a different lifetime. Upstairs, at the kitchen island, the real marriage was being negotiated. Files were spread across the marble surface. Screens glowed. Coffee went cold. Sharon stood at the window, arms crossed tightly. Start at the beginning, she said. George didn't argue. He opened a folder labeled Architect. The consortium began 15 years ago, he said. 6 founding members. High-level investors. 2 political facilitators. 1 financial engineer. The architect, Sharon murmured. Yes. Edmund Phillips. George looked up sharply. You found his name already. I don't miss patterns. A quiet acknowledgement passed between them. He continued. They identify undervalued companies with political leverage attached. Shipping routes, energy contracts, defense logistics. They manufacture instability. Trigger covenant breaches. Force liquidation. Acquire assets quietly. And anyone who fights back? She asked. They're neutralized. Her jaw tightened. And my father? Your father refused to sell his European shipping licenses. They needed them. He wouldn't budge. So they broke him. Yes. Silence. Sharon's fingers pressed harder into her arms. And you? She asked. I was a junior partner at Crest Capital when I detected irregularities in Whitmore's audit trail. You weren't even the head yet?
No.
Then why risk yourself? He met her eyes. Because I knew your father was clean. The words were simple, direct, unembellished. She turned back toward the window quickly. The sunrise blurred slightly. Sharon turned back slowly. You said my father would have been killed if he fought. Yes. He had a stroke 6 months after the collapse. George went still. That wasn't random, was it? A long silence.
No.
Her stomach dropped. What do you mean no? It wasn't an accident. The words felt like the floor disappearing. They sent a message. She stared at him, horror creeping in. They caused it.
No.
Not directly. Then what are you saying? He exhaled carefully. They sent someone to confront him. Her blood ran cold. Confront. In private. At the hospital. After the first asset freeze. Her knees nearly gave out. They threatened him? Yes. The room felt smaller. You knew this. Yes. And you didn't tell me. You were 23 and grieving. I deserve to know. You deserve to live without paranoia. Her breathing grew uneven. What did they say to him? George hesitated. That hesitation was worse than the truth. Say it. They told him accidents happen to families who make noise. Her hands trembled violently now. They mentioned you by name. Something inside Sharon shattered completely. She had spent 10 years believing her father's silence was weakness. Believing his withdrawal was defeat. But he had been protecting her. Even broken. Even humiliated. He had absorbed the threat alone. Tears filled her eyes. Furious. Uninvited. And you were there? She asked hoarsely. I arrived too late to stop the conversation. But early enough to ensure it didn't escalate further. You put security on him. Yes. You paid for the apartment. Yes. You made sure the hospital bills disappeared. Yes. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Why? He didn't hesitate this time. Because they targeted him to reach you. The truth landed heavier than anything else so far. She had always thought she was collateral damage. She hadn't realized she was leverage. You said you intervened when things got dangerous, she said slowly. Yes. How dangerous? George reached for another file. He turned the laptop toward her. A photograph filled the screen. A man sitting at a cafe 2 tables behind her. Geneva. 3 years ago. She felt ice spread through her veins. I remember him, she whispered. He wasn't random. Who was he?
Freelance asset surveillance.
Hired through a third-party intermediary. To watch me. To assess your usefulness. Her stomach twisted. I thought I was being subtle. You were, George said quietly. But you were also brilliant. They noticed. And you? I inserted someone closer. She blinked. What? He scrolled. Another image appeared. A woman in business attire. Short hair. Discreet earpiece barely visible. Sharon's breath caught. That's. Yes. My assistant. Not originally. Sharon staggered back slightly.
No.
She was former military intelligence. Placed near you after Geneva. You planted a bodyguard in my life. I placed protection. You manipulated my reality. Yes. He didn't defend it. He didn't soften it. He owned it.
I'm furious, Sharon whispered.
I know. And I don't know whether to thank you or slap you. I'd accept either. Despite everything. A short, broken laugh escaped her. The absurdity was overwhelming. Her entire decade of calculated control had been happening inside a larger, invisible structure George built around her. She had thought she was the hunter. She had been protected prey. And she hated that she understood why. George closed the laptop. They're stirring again, he said quietly. How do you know? Marchetti has reopened dormant accounts. Her mind snapped into strategy mode instantly. Target. Unknown. How long? 3 weeks. She straightened. Then we don't wait. He studied her carefully. What are you suggesting? We hit first. A flicker of something almost proud crossed his face. How? You said they fractured, she said. Fractures mean ego. Ego means vulnerability. Go on. I've spent 10 years building relationships inside their peripheral networks. He leaned slightly forward. You have. Yes. Then use them. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was enormous. Not to destroy them publicly, Sharon continued, to destabilize trust internally. Divide and conquer. Exactly. He nodded slowly. That's dangerous. So was marrying you. A beat. He almost smiled. What's your move? She walked back to the laptop, opened her own secure interface, typed rapidly. I still have contact with an analyst inside a Zurich advisory firm. George's eyes sharpened. Phillips's firm. Yes. You're certain? Positive. You've been closer than I realized. She glanced up. I told you. I don't miss patterns. She composed a message. Neutral tone. Professional inquiry. A subtle nudge about irregular activity flagged in an old audit trail. Nothing accusatory. Just enough to trigger anxiety. She hit send. George watched her carefully. You realize what that does, he said. Yes. It signals movement. Yes. It tells them someone is looking again. She met his gaze. Good. Silence stretched. Then his expression changed. Not concern. Not fear. Recognition. You're not the woman who walked down that aisle tonight, he said quietly. No, she agreed. I'm not. For the first time since the wedding, they weren't reacting. They were initiating. Her phone buzzed. Both of them froze. The response came faster than expected. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. Hello. A male voice. Measured. European accent. Ms. Whitmore. Interesting timing. Her pulse spiked. George's eyes darkened. I'm sorry, who is this? She asked calmly. You know who this is. Her throat tightened. Phillips. You've been asking questions again, he continued smoothly. I'm a consultant. I ask questions. A soft chuckle. Be careful which doors you knock on. George stepped closer. Silent. Listening. Why? Sharon asked coolly. Are some doors unstable? A pause. Longer this time. You're married now, Phillips said softly. It would be unfortunate if history repeated itself. Her blood turned to fire. Are you threatening me? No. Advising you. The line went dead. The kitchen was silent again. Sharon slowly lowered the phone. George's jaw was tight. He knows, she said. Yes. Good. He looked at her sharply. You wanted escalation. She met his gaze. Now we have it. Her heart was racing. Fear was there. But so was something stronger. Resolve. They threatened my father, she said quietly. They will regret that. George studied her for a long moment. You understand this changes everything. Yes. This isn't quiet containment anymore. No. This is open conflict. She didn't hesitate. Then let's finish what they started. For the first time since she'd known him, George Crest looked at her not as someone to protect, not as someone to shield, but as an equal. And that terrified him far more than the blade ever had. The retaliation didn't come loudly, came surgically. 3 days after Phillips's call, Crest Capital stock dipped 4% in a single morning. No news. No scandal. Just a sudden coordinated sell-off. Sharon stood in George's office watching the ticker scroll red. That's not panic, she said quietly. That's orchestration. Yes. Testing you. Yes. She folded her arms. They're probing your defenses. They're probing ours. Another alert popped on the screen. A regulatory inquiry filed against one of Crest's European subsidiaries. Anonymous complaint. Allegations of compliance irregularities. False, but damaging. Sharon exhaled slowly. They're escalating. George nodded. They want you to panic. She glanced at him. Are you? No. A pause. But they're not done. As if summoned by the words, Sharon's phone buzzed. Her heart skipped. It was her mother. She answered immediately. Mom. Helena's voice trembled slightly. Sharon. A man came by this morning. The room went still. George's gaze snapped to her. What man? Sharon asked, already knowing. He said he was reviewing old property matters. Something about estate documentation. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Did he give a name? He left a card. Paper rustled on the other end. Sharon held her breath. Edmund Phillips Advisory. The air felt electrified. Mom, Sharon said carefully. Did he threaten you?
No.
He was polite. Polite. That was worse. What did he say? He said sometimes unresolved history creates instability. Her stomach dropped. And he asked how your father was. Rage burned through her. I'll call you back, she said quickly. She ended the call. George's expression was ice. He's moved to intimidation. Sharon's hands trembled, not with fear, with fury. They went to my mother. Yes. They went to my house. Yes. Silence stretched. Then Sharon made a decision. We're done reacting. George studied her. What are you proposing? We dismantle them publicly. That's nuclear. So is threatening my family. He stepped closer. If we go public, they don't just lose money. They lose leverage. That makes them dangerous. They already are. A long pause. George nodded slowly. Then we move carefully. Her voice hardened.
No.
We move decisively. This is the moment everything shifts. If you're still here, you're locked in. Hit the like button right now because this is where the war begins. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it. Because what Sharon does next changes the entire game. That night, Sharon sat alone reviewing archived board records from Whitmore Industries. She wasn't just looking for financial discrepancies. She was looking for faces, patterns, repeated proximity. And then she saw it. A name that had appeared in every pre-collapse audit meeting. Jonathan Terry, her father's closest friend, her childhood godfather, the man who had toasted at every Whitmore holiday dinner. She felt the air leave her lungs. No, she whispered. She cross-referenced. Bank transfers, offshore consulting fees, unexplained deposits months before the collapse. Her chest tightened painfully. Terry had been paid. Not just once. Repeatedly. She stood abruptly. George looked up from across the room. What is it? She turned the laptop toward him. He read quickly. His expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened. You didn't know, she said.
No.
He was inside. Yes. Her throat burned. He used to carry me on his shoulders when I was 5. Silence. He signed my graduation card. George's voice was quiet. Internal betrayal is how they operate. Her voice broke. He watched my father unravel, knowing he caused it. George stood slowly. Later that night, as the estate quieted, Sharon found George in the study alone. He was staring at an old file. You didn't tell me everything, she said. He didn't deny it. There's more. Yes. She stepped closer. What did it cost you? He exhaled slowly. They suspected me after the Whitmore collapse. For what? For interfering. Her heartbeat quickened. What did they do? They attacked Crest Capital. You rebuilt. Yes. How? He hesitated. Then, I liquidated everything personal. She blinked. What does that mean? It means I sold the majority of my private holdings to fund the Helena Trust and shield Whitmore liabilities. Her breath caught. You nearly bankrupted yourself. Yes. For us. Yes. She stared at him. You let the world think you were ruthless. Yes. You let your reputation become monstrous. Yes. Why? Because monsters aren't questioned. They're feared. Silence. And fear gave me space to protect you. Her voice softened. You sacrificed your own name. Yes. For 11 years. Yes. She stepped even closer. Why didn't you ever try to clear it? Because if I proved I wasn't the villain, they would know who I was protecting. The weight of that truth settled heavily between them. You were alone in that, she whispered. Yes. For over a decade. Yes. She swallowed hard. I was planning to kill you. I know. And you were protecting me. Yes. The distance between them felt different now. Not hostile. Not cold. Charged. She looked down at his hands. Steady. Strong. Worn. You should have told me, she said quietly. Yes. The word was softer this time, almost regretful. The next morning, Sharon called her assistant. No answer. She tried again. Voicemail. Her stomach tightened. She hasn't missed a call in 6 years, she said. George's expression darkened. He opened a tracking interface. Last signal. 6 hours ago. Downtown. Then nothing. She's been pulled, he said. By Phillips. Likely. Why her? She's leverage. Sharon's chest constricted. She protected me for years. Yes. And now she's gone because of me. No, George said firmly. Because of them. Her breathing sharpened. We get her back. Yes. How? He looked at her carefully. We draw them out. Her eyes hardened. Good. You understand the risk. Yes. They want you visible. Then let's give them visibility. He studied her for a long moment. You're not afraid. She shook her head slowly. I was afraid for 10 years. A pause. I'm done being afraid. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. She answered. Phillips's voice was smooth. You're escalating quickly. Release her. Release who? You know exactly who. Faint chuckle. Collateral inconvenience. Her nails dug into her palm. If you harm her. Calm yourself, Mrs. Crest. The name hit differently now. You should focus on your father. Her blood went cold. What about my father? A pause. Then softly. Old men are fragile. The line disconnected. The world seemed to tilt. George moved instantly. We're leaving. For where? Your father. Her heart pounded violently. They wouldn't. They already have. She grabbed her coat. No hesitation now. No doubt. Just clarity. They moved together. Not bride and groom. Not enemies. Not even reluctant allies anymore. Partners. Against something far darker than either of them alone. The elevator felt too slow. Every second was a blade against Sharon's ribs. George stood beside her. Silent. Focused. His hand brushed hers once. Grounding, not restraining. The doors opened. Her father's apartment door was ajar. Sharon's pulse detonated. She ran. Dad! The living room was overturned. Drawers open. Papers scattered. A lamp shattered. And in the center of the room, Jonathan Terry, standing calmly, like he belonged there. Her father sat rigid in his armchair, pale but conscious. A faint bruise darkened his temple. Relief and fury collided inside her. You? She breathed. Terry turned slowly. Older now. Grayer. But the same calculating eyes. Sharon, he said softly. You've grown. Formidable. George stepped slightly in front of her. Terry's gaze flicked to him. And the architect finally shows himself. You shouldn't be here, George said evenly. Terry smiled. I built half of what you run. I'm always where I choose to be. Sharon moved around George. You destroyed my family.
No, Terry corrected gently.
Your father made poor decisions. Her father's voice cracked. That's a lie. Terry didn't even look at him. You signed the guarantees, Thomas. You told me it was temporary leverage. It was. Her father's hands trembled. You promised. I promised survival. Sharon's chest heaved. You siphoned money. You triggered the collapse. Terry tilted his head. And yet here you are, married into greater power than Whitmore ever had. The insult was deliberate. George's voice dropped. Leave. Terry's eyes sharpened. You think this ends with exposure? With headlines? He stepped closer to Sharon. You have no idea how deep this goes. She didn't step back. Then bleed with it. Silence. Heavy. Terry studied her. Something unreadable flickered in his expression. Then, he smiled. You're finally your father's daughter. And just like that, he walked out. Not rushed. Not afraid. Confident. Like a man who believed the board was still his. The door shut behind him. Only then did Sharon's knees weaken. George caught her. I should have killed him, she whispered. No, George said quietly. We're going to do worse. By nightfall, Sharon went on a live stream. Not through a press leak. Not through rumor. Through ownership. Crest Capital's global shareholder broadcast.
Million watching.
George stood off camera. This was her move. Her father sat in the front row. Shaken, but present. The screen behind Sharon illuminated. Old documents. Transaction trails. Terry's offshore accounts. Consulting contracts tied to Whitmore's collapse. Then, security footage from that morning. Terry inside her father's apartment. The room shifted. Gasps. Murmurs. Sharon's voice never shook. For 11 years, I believed the wrong man destroyed my family. Her eyes flicked, just briefly, toward George. I was wrong. The statement detonated across financial media instantly. I stand here not as a victim, not as a wife, but as the rightful heir of Whitmore Industries. A pause. And today, I'm filing criminal charges. The screen shifted again. Signed affidavits. Regulatory filings. International compliance reports linking Terry and Phillips. We will not be intimidated. We will not be silenced. And we will not negotiate. Her voice hardened. If you come for my family again, we will dismantle you publicly and legally. The feed cut. Markets responded within minutes. Crest stock surged. Terry's known affiliates began distancing. Phillips's name trended across global financial media. And for the first time, the narrative changed. Not George the destroyer. Not Sharon the grieving daughter. But truth. Weaponized. They didn't have to wait long. That night, one of Phillips's secondary firms froze operations. Regulatory raids. Asset seizures. Terry's accounts locked pending investigation. The retaliation had begun. But it wasn't silent anymore. It was surgical. George stood at the estate balcony overlooking the city. Sharon joined him. You've declared war, he said quietly. They started it. Yes, she exhaled slowly. I thought revenge would feel different. How does it feel? Empty. He studied her. You wanted pain. I wanted justice. And, she turned to him, I wanted you to hurt the way I hurt. Silence. Wind moving through the trees. I know, he said. Her throat tightened. I was going to ruin you. Yes. And you still married me. Yes. Why? He didn't look away this time. Because I would rather stand beside you while you destroyed me than watch you fight alone. The words hit harder than any confession. Her breath faltered. For 11 years, he continued quietly, I loved you from a distance that kept you safe. The world stilled. I told myself if you hated me, you were alive. And that was enough. Her vision blurred. You let me believe you were the villain. Yes. You let me plan your downfall. Yes. Because you loved me? Yes.
No hesitaste.
No strategy.
No calculaste.
Just truth. The words he buried for over a decade. And suddenly, the war outside felt smaller than the one inside her chest. I don't know how to forgive you, she whispered. I'm not asking you to. He stepped closer. I'm asking you to survive this with me. Her hand found his. Not out of strategy. Not out of obligation. But choice. For the first time. Choice. The morning after Sharon's broadcast, the world shifted. Not slowly. Violently. Financial networks looped her speech on repeat. Whitmore heiress exposes internal betrayal. Crest Capital fires back. Terry under investigation. But the real damage wasn't on television. It was internal. Edmund Phillips's inner circle began leaking. Anonymous testimony. Encrypted files. Offshore shell companies tied to Terry, and indirectly to Phillips. The machine was cracking. Sharon stood in the war room as updates flooded in. George moved with calm precision, issuing instructions, rerouting assets, insulating Crest from counterattacks. We've split them, he said. Good. Desperation makes people reckless. Her jaw tightened. Let them be reckless. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. She answered without hesitation. This time, Phillips didn't sound smooth. He sounded tired. You've overplayed your hand. No, she replied evenly. I've finally played mine. You think exposing Terry protects you? I think sunlight is lethal. A pause. You've destabilized powerful men. You destabilized my father. His tone sharpened. You have no idea what Terry is capable of. Her pulse steadied instead of racing. Oh, she said quietly. I think I do. The line went dead. George watched her carefully. He's losing control. Good. That makes Terry unpredictable. She met his gaze. Then let him come. He did, but not how they expected. It wasn't a public retaliation. It wasn't a corporate maneuver. It was personal. That evening, Jonathan Terry went live. Not through financial press. Through a direct media interview. He denied everything. Called the allegations a fabricated power grab. Claimed Sharon had been emotionally manipulated by her husband. And then, he produced documents. Old ones. Selective ones. Correspondence between George and a European regulatory board from 11 years ago. Edited. Framed. George looked complicit. The narrative flipped in hours. Markets trembled. Commentators questioned Sharon's judgment. Was George involved all along? Is this a marital cover-up? Sharon stared at the screen in disbelief. He twisted it. Yes, George said calmly. You didn't authorize that collapse.
No.
But you knew it was coming. Yes. She looked at him sharply. You knew. I knew they were pressuring Whitmore. I didn't know Terry had already siphoned funds. Her chest tightened. But you positioned Crest to absorb fallout. Yes. You benefited. Yes. The word hung heavy. George. I protected what I could. At the cost of my father's company. Silence. He didn't defend himself. Didn't argue. Didn't soften it. I made the choice I thought would keep you alive. Her breathing grew shallow. By letting us burn? By preventing you from being crushed under criminal liability. The truth wasn't clean. It wasn't heroic. It was strategic. Brutal. Necessary. Her eyes filled not with hatred. With conflict. You should have told me. Yes. You don't get to decide what I survive.
No.
His voice was steady. But I would make the same choice again. The honesty was infuriating. And devastating. Before she could respond, an alert sounded across every screen in the room. Breaking news.
À car accident.
Single vehicle. High-speed collision. Vehicle registered to Jonathan Terry. The footage was grainy. Street camera. Terry's car speeding through an intersection. Another SUV running a red light. Impact. Metal folding like paper. Silence. Sharon felt the air leave her lungs. Was it us? She asked immediately. George's voice was firm.
No.
Phillips. Possibly. Emergency responders surrounded the wreckage. Reporters speculated. Conspiracy threads ignited within minutes. Assassination? Silencing? Desperation? Hours passed. Finally, confirmation. Jonathan Terry was alive. Critical. Unconscious. Under police guard. Sharon didn't know whether to feel relief or disappointment. I needed him to stand trial, she whispered. George looked at her carefully. You needed answers. Yes. And you still might get them. Her phone buzzed. Hospital number. She answered immediately. A nurse's voice. Miss Whitmore? Yes. He regained consciousness briefly. Her heart slammed. And he asked for you. The world narrowed. He said there are things only you should hear. George's jaw tightened. It could be a trap. It could be the truth. Silence stretched between them. I'm going, she said. I'm coming with you.
No.
His eyes hardened. I'm not letting you walk into uncertainty alone. She held his gaze. You won't. A beat. You'll walk beside me. Not in front. Not shielding. Beside. Something shifted in his expression. Respect. They left immediately. This is where the enemy starts collapsing from within. If you're still here, hit the like button, because the next conversation changes Sharon forever. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're about to see why you should. The hospital room smelled sterile. Machines beeped softly. Terry looked smaller, weaker, but his eyes were clear. He dismissed the nurse. Sharon stepped forward. George stayed near the door. Terry's gaze moved between them. "You two make a formidable pair," he rasped. "Save your breath," Sharon said coldly. "Start talking." Faint smile. "You were always direct." "Why?" He studied the ceiling. "Because Whitmore was going to fail." "That's a lie. It was over-leveraged. Your father was proud. Stubborn. You could have helped." "I did." Her voice rose. "You robbed us. I repositioned assets. For yourself. For survival." She stepped closer. "You destroyed him." His expression shifted, almost regret. "I underestimated the emotional damage." Her laugh was hollow. "You think." He coughed weakly. "Phillips wanted full acquisition. I diverted what I could." "Diverted," George repeated quietly. Terry's eyes flicked to him. "You think you were the only one protecting her?" Silence. Sharon froze. "What does that mean?" Terry exhaled slowly. "There were charges coming. Criminal ones. Fraud tied to Whitmore's debt." Her stomach dropped. "I transferred liability structures before they triggered. By collapsing the company." "Yes." Tears burned behind her eyes. "You let us fall to avoid prison. I let Whitmore die so Thomas wouldn't." The room felt unstable. Her father would have faced charges. Public humiliation. Prison. Terry swallowed painfully. "I didn't do it cleanly. I profited. I justified it." "Don't romanticize it," George said coldly. Terry's breathing grew shallow. "I made a choice," Sharon whispered. "You made it without us." "Yes." The monitor's rhythm faltered briefly. He looked at her not as an enemy, but as something close to regret. "I never meant for you to carry hatred this long." Her voice trembled. "You don't get to decide what I carry." A faint nod. "Fair." His eyes shifted to George. "You were right to stay close." George didn't respond. Terry's gaze returned to Sharon. "I can't undo it." "No," she said softly. "You can't." A long pause. Then, "Phillips won't stop." Her pulse quickened. "He orchestrated the accident." "Confirmation." "He thinks you've destabilized him beyond repair." "Good," George said. Terry's breathing grew ragged. "He'll escalate." The monitor spiked. Nurses rushed in. Sharon stepped back as doctors surrounded the bed. Chaos. Commands. Defibrillator charged. George's hand found hers. Not controlling. Steadying. The shock jolted Terry's body. Once. Twice. Flatline. A long, unforgiving tone. Time of death called. Silence. Sharon stared at the lifeless body of the man she had hated for 11 years. And suddenly, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like unfinished answers. Jonathan Terry was buried quietly. No grand statements. No press. But the markets felt it. Within 48 hours of his death, shell companies tied to his network began liquidating. Silent transfers. Quiet exits. Not panic. Preparation. George stood in the war room reviewing live global feeds. "He's moving," he said. Sharon didn't have to ask who. "Edmund Phillips." "He's extracting liquidity," George continued. "Consolidating offshore." "Running," she said.
"No," George corrected softly.
"Positioning." Her jaw hardened. "Then we corner him." Before George could respond, every screen in the room flickered. A live acquisition notice. Hostile. Filed minutes ago. Crest Capital targeted. Filed through 3 international proxies. But the controlling interest? Edmund Phillips. Silence swallowed the room. "He's attempting a takeover," someone whispered. Sharon stared at the numbers. "He can't." "He can," George replied calmly. If he triggers panic. The strategy was brutal and brilliant. With Terry dead, Phillips would frame Crest as unstable, manipulated, emotionally run. He would spook shareholders, drive down value, then acquire control at a discount. A corporate assassination. Sharon inhaled slowly. He thinks grief makes us weak. George's eyes met hers. He thinks you're emotional. Her voice went cold. Good. This is the final play. If you've been here since the beginning, hit the like button right now. Because Sharon is about to do something nobody expects. Emergency board session. Global shareholders patched in. Media already speculating. Phillips's acquisition letter circulated publicly. Painted Crest as unstable under Sharon's influence. Implied reckless decision-making. Implied George had conflicted motives. It was elegant, poisonous. Sharon stood at the head of the table. Not shaking, not angry, focused. They expect us to defend, she said. We will, one board member replied. She shook her head.
No.
George studied her carefully. What are you thinking? She turned toward him. You once told me monsters aren't questioned. Yes. Today we stop being monsters. A pause. We become untouchable. She tapped the screen. Release everything. The room froze. Everything? Someone asked. All internal audits. All historical communications. Even the ones that implicate us in knowing collapse was imminent. A board member stood abruptly. That would expose us to litigation. It would expose the truth, she corrected. George watched her, not interrupting. If we remove secrecy, she continued, Phillips has nothing left to weaponize. Silence. Radical transparency, George murmured. She nodded once. And one more thing. She pulled up a prepared filing. Gasps filled the room. She had already acquired controlling shares. Not quietly, strategically, over months, using personal holdings, private trusts, assets George had once liquidated, now rebuilt. I anticipated retaliation, she said calmly. And as of this morning, Crest Capital cannot be forcibly acquired. Shock rippled. George's eyes flickered with something rare.
Bride.
She looked at him briefly. I learned from the best. The filing went public. Transparency release activated. Crest's internal data flooded regulatory platforms. Nothing hidden. Nothing edited. Including George's early knowledge of Whitmore's instability and his documented attempts to mitigate criminal exposure. The narrative shifted again. Not corruption. Containment. Not conspiracy. Protection. Markets steadied. Then surged. Phillips's acquisition attempt collapsed within hours. Without secrecy, he had no fear to exploit. His leverage evaporated. For the first time, he miscalculated. Sharon's phone rang. Direct line. Edmund Phillips. She answered calmly. You should have taken the settlement, he said quietly. You should have stayed away from my family. You think this ends cleanly? I think it ends with you irrelevant. A pause. You're ruthless. No, she corrected softly. I'm finished being hunted. Silence. You've destroyed alliances that took decades to build. You destroyed a little girl's family, she replied evenly. Another pause. Then, you're more dangerous than he is. Her eyes shifted briefly toward George. Goodbye, Mr. Phillips. She ended the call. And just like that, the war was over. Not with bullets. Not with explosions. But with exposure. And control. That night, the estate was quiet. For the first time in weeks, no alerts. No emergency calls. No war room screens. Just stillness. Sharon stood on the balcony overlooking the city lights. George joined her. It's done, he said. Yes. You won. She shook her head slightly. We survived. A pause. Then she turned toward him fully. For 11 years, she said softly. I hated you. I know. I rehearsed destroying you. I know. And you let me. Yes. Her eyes searched his. You don't get to hide behind protection anymore. I'm not. She stepped closer. If we do this, if we stay married, it's not strategy. It never was for me. Silence. Heavy. Real. You loved me when I wanted you dead. Yes. Why? His answer came without hesitation. Because you were worth the risk. Her breath caught. I don't forgive you, she whispered. I'm not asking you to. But I see you. The words were small, but they carried 11 years. His composure cracked, just slightly. That's enough, he said quietly. She reached for his hand. Not out of obligation, not out of revenge, but choice. And this time, it wasn't war between them. It was partnership. Equal. Honest. Earned. Epilogue. Legacy. Months later, Whitmore Industries was reborn. Not as it was, but stronger. Ethical oversight expanded. Public transparency policies became Crest's signature model. Financial publications called it the Whitmore Doctrine. Sharon hated the name, but she understood the impact. She didn't become ruthless. She became strategic. She didn't become cold. She became controlled. And George? He stopped being the monster. He became the man beside her. One evening, as they prepared for a charity gala benefiting corporate ethics reform, Sharon caught her reflection. She no longer saw the grieving daughter, or the vengeful bride. She saw something steadier, power without fear. George adjusted his cufflinks beside her. You ready? He asked. She looked at him, really looked at him. Yes, she said, and this time, she meant it. If you stayed throughout the story, comment Power Wins, like the video, and subscribe, because the next story, it might be even darker.